Hi, Omri here. I hope you're well. I am in Topeka, Kansas at my mother's home. I had a opportunity to do a keynote at Washburn University as part of their Woolmester, where they're having dialogues about community and belonging. So I did a talk in relationship to Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and it was delightful. Had some crazy weather, but otherwise it was good. So I just wanted to get a chance to share with you here on Substack. I wanted to share a video because I've been watching things. I did a video last week that talked about what happened with Harvard's former president. And I think it's starting to spill over even more, but we're not having what I consider a robust discussion about it. So a few billionaires are, I'd say, they put the DEI practitioner class on its heels. I guess I'm a part of that class, but maybe a bit too flat-footed to be healed by what occurs to me in a large part as silliness. Now, reacting to, let me say, overreacting to silliness generally has two reasons why one would spend their time doing so. What I do get, and this is why I know there's just reaction, the response or reaction to the news cycle. I get that. It's to a certain extent, sharing counter narratives extremely important to a broad audience, particularly for those who are willing to explore um, a more heterodox approach as they make up their own mind. Now, we hope that there's quite a few people that do that, but my experience given social media is that people usually are attracted to that which they already agree with. So the overreactors, and this is one of the reasons that I believe that they do it in the social media era, they're generally defending their own perspectives and seeking to do so with an audience that most agrees with them. We can call that an echo chamber. We can call it just the affinities of those that they are on the same page with or that they interact with behind the scenes that have them align and reinforce a belief, but not necessarily look for any disconfirmation or challenge about that belief. So that's one. They're just trying to find people to amplify whatever they already believe. Second, what they want to do in the way that they overact is that they discredit any perspective that's counter to the one that they feel is right. So this overreactor is right. In the case of most DEI overreactors, righteous. Now, I'll add other one, a third. Sometimes people are working to reinforce their brands and increase their social media following. And this isn't the case for this person I'm going to talk about, but that's what I'm hearing. You have one, people just want to defend their position and rightness, and they do it with people that they already agree with. And it seems like everybody's in agreement, but it's really that three, four, five, 6,000, whatever people that just agree with them, but don't have any counter opinions. And the counter opinion people are either being shut out or, they don't even engage because they know what the consequences are and they don't want to waste their time. Right. And that's people that agree with so-called DEI and those that don't, but we're not having any kind of robust discussion. And if you try to do it, they'll just try to discredit you. And I don't like even using that word they because they or me, I'm a part of this DEI practitioner class. And I oftentimes disagree with colleagues. And I don't think we get into conversations where we can robustly disagree with trust and care with each other so that we can be open and challenge these notions that might potentially be holding us back. So the third reason around brand and enforcing your brand is there. But this conversation I had with a colleague that I have great respect for, I've known him for a few years now. We've only met virtually, but I really appreciate his perspective. He's very fact based. Mike really, I think, is committed to this in a way that's not just about him, which I think we all should be. We can, of course, make our coin and do our thing, but to be just concerned about your own personal brand, I think is limiting to as an individual, and I think it's limiting to this work we call diversity, equity, and inclusion. So Mike posted an article on LinkedIn, and I'm going to share a little bit about our back and forth because in our back and forth, I think what it did for me was give me a chance to talk about this in a way that I think we should be. I don't like using should. And what's the perspective when overreaction is not necessarily getting us where we want to be? So I responded to an article that Mike posted called experts cringe at billionaires' claim that MLK would have opposed DEI efforts. So the article, which I read after I responded to Mike, I just looked at the title, and when I searched all the word experts cringe, that's what I really responded or reacted to. And I'm going to share with you what I said. But there are a few things that stood out from the article, in particular, because I don't have time to go through all of them. But one was talking about that this billionaire that was part of the dynamic around President Gay, he said that he believes in diversity generally. But this person, this expert that was cited in the article, said that uh, the fact that the billionaire said that he agrees that diversity is a good thing, but opposes DEI, this expert said, here's the thing. The diversity that they want to focus on is white male. That's it. Everything else really doesn't matter to them. He continues, they want to talk about diversity of thought, which I think is important. The problem, however, is they want to style it as diversity of their thought, which is not inclusive. When somebody actually tries to say what somebody said and what somebody's thinking, that's an absolute automatic yellow caution light to me. You have no idea what that person meant by saying that they actually support diversity, they believe in diversity. You don't know. Maybe the person's in bad faith. It's possible. But to make that assumption for your brand is dangerous and not helpful. And in a way, it's intellectually shallow. It's not what we need to advance the conversation. I'd like to be better than that. So I've said it before and I'll say it again. DEI practitioners, DEI experts, strategists, whatever we style ourselves and however one who makes a living calls themselves in this space. DEI experts, strategists, and practitioners must be beacons for dissent. I'll say more of what I mean by this in a second, but first let me share my response to Brother Mike Green. My first response, experts, in close quotes, cringe, question mark. We have to stop reacting to billionaires by speaking, appealing to the metaphorical choir in the church of DEI. Many of these critics say what they do to watch and likely laugh at our reactions. Our defensive, on our heels, social media tirades are fuel for their rapidly dressed fires. Are these sophisticated rebuttals advancing the work? Maybe they make us feel a bit more emboldened, but the impact beyond that is questionable. No one knows what MLK Jr. would think. Different context, time, and dynamic, King would have evolved his thinking. Hopefully, we are doing the same. So that's what I said. And what I got back from Mike was a very thoughtful response where he said we have to challenge these narratives, what he thinks are, white supremacist indoctrination of mostly white Americans. And if you don't refute it, it will just pile up and it will, cascade and it will get into all areas of social, political, and economic life. So, these attacks are to dull DEI, and that's what they're intending to do. And then that's what's happening. Now, I'm not living and working full time in the US, so it's a legitimate statement. I don't think it's necessarily complete. And I think as practitioners working with companies, it's possible that companies are saying, we believe in DEI and we're looking for certain results. Because my experience is when you're getting results, you're creating something that, in my definition, creates the conditions for people to be able to do their best work and to thrive and to make their best contributions to the organization. That's an investment that companies want to make. Now, not all of them do, but I think enough of them do that we could, with confidence, say that level of work, seeing those outcomes, seeing that happen over time and building it to be sustainable is something that companies want to invest in because it's a minor investment versus the other investments that are made in the organization. So here was my actual response to Mike. Mike, I know the intention and I applaud it. What we have not done, which makes the responses a bit hollow, is acknowledge our own cause in the matter. And cause in the matter, I mean our cause is a matter as practitioners. That is, as a practitioner body claiming as quote unquote expert, I'm not sure we have done a robust job at consistently creating the conditions toward beloved community. We've, in too many instances, categorically poo poo white blokes, name calling and blame placing without considering solutions that put us in situations that can collectively move towards what we would like to see in the world. It's lopsided. I get the sentiments, but it occurs as the bitterness King was worried Negroes would stay at 70 years ago. King said this in one of his speeches related to the beloved community. He had some speeches between, I think it was 56 and 57, where he talked about this concept of beloved community that came from Howard Thurman, that came from Josiah Royce, a philosopher. So that was kind of the succession of this notion of beloved community. Thurman, I think, deepened it and made it clear in Jesus and the Disinherited. And King, of course, embodied it in what he did. He talked about it more explicitly and he put it into action from, Thurman's meeting with Gandhi and his vow to practice a nonviolent social change to his influence on King to King manifesting it in the world didn't have the successor. We're supposed to be the successors of that. There were some that I think got us to where we are today, which obviously isn't where we want to be, but it's a lot better than we were in 1968, right? And we now have the opportunity to build this beloved community in ways that we didn't and beyond the walls of the United States of America. I shouldn't have said walls, but you know what I'm saying. So my next question in this response to Mike was if the rhetorical approaches we see were working, I'd be all in. But what they are creating are political and ideological conflicts, not pragmatic and needed conflicts towards something with substance. Ideology is winning. People with greatest need are not. How do we organize as a group of practitioners willing to be influenced by different perspectives than our own predominant narratives? We are built to be beacons for dissent. When resistance comes, we act as force fields protecting our own orthodoxy. Maybe some are different outside of social media. And I kind of put one of those emojis like that because I haven't seen it. And that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, but I think a lot of people are on their rhetoric and it translates into how they engage with clients. And it's worked because we saw what happened to George Floyd and our response to that and corporate response to it. But that was in 2020 and we're in 2024. So did that response get us what we wanted to create? Was it built for sustainability? My answer is I don't believe it was at all. Mike gave a very thoughtful response, which I said amen to. He's been doing some, I think, brilliant work over time. And he talked about in his response to me, Mike said the field of DEI is unfortunately fragmented and filled with disparate, disconnected approaches, with many containing blame and shame methods to undermine the limited success of other efforts. Moreover, the pollution of the field is leveraged by those who assail DEI as an ineffective agent of change. He talks about his conversations journey, his small group learning, a prerequisite process that builds a common ground of knowledge, understanding, and of racial dynamics in society that are done through a lens of historical context. What Mike and his wife have done is brilliant, and I said amen to that. Look, DEI can come under attack, like CSR, like ESG is now. The three letters and all the above get a reductionist comb over by so-called advocates and opponents. We haven't really fully explored it. We haven't been, in my opinion, as honest as we could be about the entirety of what these things mean and how we put them into practice and how we build them so that these types of reactions to them, the vapidness of them is easily snuffed out immediately if we've done these things with rigor. And so my belief as DEI practitioners, we can't respond to the current oppositional rhetoric with emotionally loud, yet intellectually shallow, non-reflective, uncurious, reactionary banter. It doesn't work. Just like Brown versus the Board of Education used science to illustrate the detrimental effects of segregation, We have to appeal to hearts and minds, and not just hearts and minds of those who agree with our standpoints. Years ago, I interviewed Dr. Susan Fisk, social neuroscience, formerly of the Fisk Lab at Princeton. She retired last year. Susan's work is some of the most impactful social neuroscience, social science research done over the past several decades. And many well known academics in the field are branches from her tree. So that includes Jennifer Eberhard, Peter Glick, Amy Cuddy, and many, many, many more. She shared a lot of wisdom with me when I spoke to her. And one thing she said really stood out, something that her husband, who is a demographer, said. He said, demographics are destiny. Consider this as a call for global corporations to consider that any self-imposed limitations on an organization's ability to adapt and thrive through the inevitable challenges in relational and transactional ways of being in organizational life in the workplace are damaging. So to limit and say DEI is whatever, dead or blah, 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 because that's what it is. It's blah, blah, blah. And when you don't fully understand it, it's even more blah, 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 but it resonates with people who don't know the distinction between the blah, blah, blah and the transformational potential. So, DEI has been in too many cases reduced to representation and grievance for racialized people. Such reductionist approaches, and I've said this before, this is not new, such reductionist approaches are also self-imposed limitations that I believe have been perpetuated by DEI practitioners. I'm not saying that representation and the diversity paradigms of making amends for past wrongs isn't helpful. It's just that without going beyond the social justice and civil rights paradigms into the more expansive and ultimately more impactful systems oriented performance paradigms, the transformational potential of what we call DEI will by and large remain unmet. So there's a better way, a better approach to creating the conditions for people to thrive in their organizations. The question is, are we as a practitioner body, are we willing to interrogate our current approaches to DEI? Are we ready to be open to criticism? Are we sufficiently motivated and curious enough to ask incisive questions about our own motivations and preparedness? Are we determined to evolve the work and shape the future? That is, managing the tension and complexity inherent in doing so. If so, put your hands up. I'm in. I hope this was helpful. Signing off from my mother's dining room in Topeka, Kansas. I appreciate y'all. Make it a great day. Peace.